All right, does everyone hear me okay online? Love to see some faces I recognize that have not seen previously. Fantastic to see you all. Welcome to Northampton Reparations Study Commission. Our first order of business is to call me into order, which I'm doing right now. Welcome everyone. We got a couple people in here. And then I'll call roll right now. I see Marcia on there, Renika, and some of the other commissioners. So I'll go through. William Newman? Here. Felicia Lundquist should be here soon. She texts me. Garrick Perry? Here. Jeremy Baker-Paquette? Jeremy on there? Marissa Elkins will be here soon. Marcia Morris? I saw Marcia. I see Marcia on there. All right, Marcia's here. Usman Power Green, that's me. I am here. Renika Montgomery Tamlico is here. Hi. And Rachel Naismith is here. Welcome, everybody. Beautiful day. It's great to see everyone here. Our guests on here. We have a wonderful agenda, and part of why I'm so excited by it is we have some people who are going to be presenting their work, and so that's always exciting. I wanted to see if people had a chance to take a look at the minutes, and actually those who are online, Renika and Marcia and Marissa, I have some hard copies of stuff, by the way, and so you'll see us flipping around because I made copies of some of the materials, FYI. But can I get approval of the minutes?
I move to approve.
To approve?
Second.
Okay, all right. So let's go through our agenda here. All right, so we're gonna start off with public comment. And so maybe we will start in person and then we will go to those online. So to people here, we have a good solid 10 minutes for any comments. No? Any of the people online would like to? Oh.
Tom Weiner, 11 Linden Street. Just want to really encourage the adoption of the recommendations. I feel they're sound, I feel they're essential, and it would definitely contribute, especially if they get out into the public eye, which I hope also happens really soon through some public event that I've been advocating for, that the city residents would get behind them, because I think that's critical for them to be. I think they have to be passed by the city council or adopted or whatever, but if we could get the public on board, that would increase the likelihood of bringing about what happened with the commission's establishment, was that it was adopted unanimously. That's what I think we'd love to see. Thank you.
Right. Others online for public comments? We got about a few minutes for it. I'm looking at the Zoom screen here to see if any hands pop up. No? All right, let's move forward. On the agenda, we did have the time first for our public speakers, our visitors. I know at least our visitors from Sojourner Truth Memorial Committee were here, but I think that they may have thought they were going later, and so they're not currently here this moment. So I wondered if folk from the Newburyport Black History Initiative are available and prepared to go now. Is that true, Korea?
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. So what I distributed around just for commissioners who are in here, I don't know if this got circulated. Sarah had made some questions just to sort of prompt us to get to think. So we have circulated a few questions. We thought, Korea, if you maybe could begin just by introducing yourself to the commission and to our guests, and maybe give an overview and talk a bit about the work y'all been doing in Newburyport.
Sounds great. Yes, good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you. I used to be a Northampton resident. I lived there for about 5-6 years when I was studying at UMass Amherst. So Northampton is a really meaningful place for me. I want to thank you all, Sarah Patterson too, for inviting us as an organization to participate in this discussion and share some of the collaborative work that we have done here in Newburyport to really engage this history of African Americans in Newburyport, but also in New England more broadly. So we have a presentation. We don't have a PowerPoint, but we have a presentation. It'll run about 15 minutes. So is that okay if we just kind of dive right in?
Yeah, and could you just give us a little bit of your background, where you teach, just who you are, so people get a context for us, and then we'll jump right in.
Absolutely. So I'm Cabria Baumgartner. I teach at Northeastern University. I'm an associate professor of history and Africana studies there. My fields of interest are early African American history, particularly in New England, also public history, history of slavery and abolition. Usman and I know each other. We had the same advisor in Dr. Manisha Sinhas, whom some of you might know. Jordy will introduce himself when he speaks, and then same for Sid. But it's three of us who essentially lead the Newburyport Black History Initiative. And so in this presentation, we want to provide an overview of our organization, talking about our mission, the key components of our work, and then we welcome questions from you, because we want what we share to be helpful to you as you're engaged in this really important work. So the Newburyport Black History Initiative was launched in February of 2022. And it includes us three, but there are also other archivists and librarians and community members who contributed to this project. We all share a deep history in Black history, a deep understanding of Black history, and a deep interest in Black history, and especially Black history in New England. And so our work as an organization really builds on the work of earlier historians. And I think that part is really important, because Newburyport, there have been local historians who've been tracing this history. And our role has really been to expand it. And so we did not begin this work, but we are continuing it and we're expanding it. And we're doing so in a couple of different ways. We've really been digging deeper into local and regional archives, and that's been really exciting. We work with the Newburyport Public Library. We've been incorporating recent scholarship from historians and scholars, some of whom are on this call. And we've been writing for the public. I think that's been really important, a bit of a departure for me as an academic historian, but it's really important for us to write for the public, and to write in a way that aims to inspire, to educate, and to bring about racial justice. So over the last couple of years, our primary focus has been on a sort of public history, public installation, public memorial, to Newburyport's history. And so this is really a project about honoring and remembering those who came before us. And we absolutely see it as a form of reparative work. And so we feel that these signs can help to create greater understanding, greater inclusivity, and help to promote truth and justice. So I can say more about our writing process and our research process maybe toward the end, and maybe that'll be part of the Q&A. But I would just add, before I hand things over to Sid, I would just say this is very much a project on recovering Black history. And so it's about preservation too, and it's challenging work because the archive doesn't often tell the full stories of African Americans. So we've been sort of stitching together fragments from the archive. And we've been doing this because we want to dislodge this myth that New England is a sort of bastion of abolition, and that there wasn't a history of slavery here. We know that there was. And so in a lot of ways, our signs are about correcting some of those narratives that people have when they think about New England and when they think about Newburyport in particular. So I'll pass things over to Sid, who will talk more about how we got started, our mission, and our signs.
I said, yeah, unmute.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is short for Cynthia Raschke. I am, my graduate degree is in psychology, applied psychology, so I worked in business for many years. But something that's always bothered me since a child is injustice of any kind. So in the wake of the Black Lives Matter, I was very, very fortunate to have heard a lecture by Dr. Baumgartner on Newburyport had once began a Black Heritage Trail, and Cabria encouraged all of the people at the YWCA. I was a former president of this very active YWCA in Newburyport, to consider updating that heritage trail. And I enjoyed the lecture and didn't think very much about it until I realized, I don't know how many of you visited Newburyport, but we, like a lot of Massachusetts towns, pride ourselves on our history. And it just occurred to me, I don't think our history is representative. So I contacted Dr. Baumgartner and I said, I would like to look into something to sort of make reparations to the way history is presented in Newburyport, because if it's not representative, it's not complete. And she encouraged me, and the first thing I found was I'm also on the board of the Rail Trail Group, the Coastal Trails Coalition. We have a lot of, in the 4 towns that about Newburyport, have a lot of interpretive signs, whether they're nature, they're a lot about history and other topics. I called Jordy, Senior Project Manager for the City of Newburyport, who will be speaking next. And I said, Jordy, I don't think our rail trail signs are as inclusive as they could be. And it turns out Jordy had been researching the Black history of Newburyport, and he said, neither do I. And so that's how this group got organized. And the very first sign that was unveiled to a lot of enthusiasm of the residents and other interested parties was about a Black neighborhood that no longer exists because of economic downturn and other reasons why we don't know. And that went on our local rail trail. So that was our very first sign. And Jordy and Cabria took it from there. And now we have a lot of other wonderful signs that are installed and yet to be installed that cover a wide range of topics. And the last, and Jordy can expound on that, the last thing I will say is that it was very important for us as an initiative to stick to our mission. And our mission, in a nutshell, has been to ensure stories of Newburyport's Black history of residents, businesses, neighborhoods are made accessible to the public. And Jordy can speak more about those signs and some of the other topics. But the very first sign was about a Black neighborhood that existed right in the area of this rail trail. Thank you all for inviting us.
Thank you.
All right, I guess I'll take the baton. So, yeah, I'm Jordy Vining. As Cabria and Sid has noted, I work for the City of Newburyport. I'm in what we have here called the Office of Planning and Development, and my title is Senior Project Manager. So I deal with a whole variety of essentially special projects, whether it's public buildings, public spaces, park spaces, trails, land conservation, public art, all kinds of things. And I've had a particular interest in public history and local history. And as I think one of my colleagues there was saying, I've been working on public interpretive signs for probably 10 or 15 years, and had just been starting to try to work with another local historian on this historic black neighborhood that Sid was referencing. And Sid, basically pulled us together as a team, Cabria and Sid and I, which to me it's been a dream team. I think we've been very fortunate. We've worked well together. And after working on that first sign about the historic black neighborhood, I think I literally said something like, let's do about 10 more of these, because we said this is good work and we shouldn't stop here. And a couple of years later, I think it's been more like 3 years at this point, we're poised to install the sort of second half, the last of all those signs. So by this fall, we'll have 11 in. Just on Friday, I gave a tour to the first half dozen that are in, to a group of senior citizens. We've been doing tours with school groups. We've been giving lectures. We're trying to sort of use those signs as the core of the project, but get the word out in all sorts of different ways. And just to underline a little bit of what Cabria and Sid were talking about, one thing that I think we've been doing that is a little bit different than what previous local historians have been done is we've really made sure to center Black Newburyporters in these stories, who we're featuring, who we're focusing on. A lot of the focus on so-called Black history in Newburyport in the past was about William Lloyd Garrison, white preachers, Underground Railroad stops, that sort of thing. But and all of that is great, but we wanted to focus on really the hidden history and center on the Black residents, the Black workers, et cetera, of this community. So some of the lectures we've given have been under the framework of expanding the spotlight. We don't want to take away the spotlight from anything else. We want to expand it. And then I think that's been pretty well received. We've had a lot of interest in the public for the signs, for the lectures, for the tours, for the newspaper articles, magazine articles, and so forth. And let's see, that first sign, about the Black historic neighborhood, we had well over 100 people, I think, when we unveiled that sign on a very cold day in February. So there was a fair amount of community interest. That sign actually did, a few months ago, get vandalized. Someone took a sharp object to it, and it seemed pretty clear that it was a racially motivated form of vandalism. We did do a temporary repair. There were some newspaper articles about that, and we're actually getting the sign permanently, the panel replaced. But I thought I'd note that as well. None of these things go 100% smoothly, but overall, I would say none of us really knew what the response would be, I suppose, from the public to this whole initiative, and I think it's been very, very positive overall, even with vandalism, even with a city councilor not necessarily being supportive, etc. Just quickly, I know the time is limited. Some of the questions that were passed around seem to focus on Black soldiers, Revolutionary War era, Civil War era, and so forth. One of our signs that's going out in front of City Hall right near our Veterans Memorial Plaza is about Black soldiers and sailors. I actually just pulled up the layout. Should I try to share my screen? Would that be of interest to people? Yeah? Yeah.
Let me see if I can give you permission to share.
Okay, good.
I'll give all participants. So go ahead.
All right. All right, can everyone see that image there? Yes. So So this is the sign that this has been fabricated, and we're scheduling the installation of that. The title, Fighting for Double Victory, Newburyport's Black Soldiers and Sailors. There's so much material here. We ended up focusing not on the Revolutionary War era on this sign, but on Civil War soldiers, Black Civil War soldiers, as well as World War II. We were in our research phase. We were gathering information about World War I, the Spanish-American War, the Revolutionary War, little bits and pieces of information about people who were involved in all those conflicts. We eventually decided to focus on the Civil War and World War II just because we had a little bit more information about those folks. And so for instance, these inset pictures here of the Cousins family, there's a local family which is still here today, had four brothers go off and fight in different capacities, and we wanted to be able to profile them. And similarly, some very dramatic stories emerged of some of Newburyport's Black residents going off to fight in the Civil War, and so we tried to profile a couple of them. There's a horse, a cavalry soldier shown here as a general illustration. We talk about on the sign about a teenager, Arthur L.W. Fowler, who joined a cavalry regiment, and he was one of the first, as we say on the sign, gallop into Richmond, Virginia, when the Union forces took Richmond. And we were also focused on a soldier and sailor. He was both, Evans Covington, who was both in the Navy for a 3-year stint, and then also joined the famous Black 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Regiment. And in quite a turn, he, after all those years of fighting, he was sent to something called the Government Asylum for the Insane, where he died. And then his widow back here, young widow back here in Newburyport, was denied a widow's pension, as were so many other Black soldiers at the time. So that's just a very quick sort of flavor, I guess, of those stories. We interacted with our Veterans Affairs Director and a number of other veterans who were all very appreciative of this particular sign, as well as all the others. So maybe that's where I should end my little monologue here, and we can go to Q&A.
All right. Thank you. We have a few questions. Maybe I'll give people an opportunity, and let's maybe unshare your screen. There we go. Perfect. Let's see if other commissioners have any questions off the top. I have a few myself, but yeah, Rachel, go ahead.
Thank you so much for this presentation, and I was very interested in the sign you showed us. And I know that we have Historic Northampton, who they've created some signs, and I noticed yours has a lot more text. I wonder, did you have guidelines that you came up with, or did you have a graphic designer that you were working with?
Shall I jump in there? Yeah, we definitely talked a lot about those parameters and the constant tug of war between historians versus interpreters, right? And I remember, for instance, working in previous before the Newburyport Black History Initiative, working with other local historians and saying, let's work on this subject. And then I get a 20-page paper, and I say, there's no way I can put a 20-page paper on a sign and have to boil that down. We talked to other public interpretation specialists, and they recommended no more than 400 words, approximately, about 400 words as a limit. And many said preferably less, just in terms of what people can absorb. And we decided that we liked that 400-word approximate limit for the block of text for those who really want to dive into the sign and try to get some understanding. At the same time, we realized not everyone is going to read all that text, and so we wanted to have a big font title, which can sort of be a hook and grab people and explain the basic premise of whatever idea you want to convey just in that title and just in the main background image. And then we also have this other layer of a summary, like a sentence or two, which summarizes the elevator pitch, right? It summarizes the main idea. So we're trying to think through different audiences in terms of how people engage with these signs, and that's what we ended up with.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Others? We probably have about 5 more minutes or so. We can pull around. Yeah.
So this is a request, not really a question, but if you've come across good data on the members of the Massachusetts 54th Regiment in the Civil War, we're really interested in seeing if we can get those names. We actually have all the names of Northampton-based black soldiers in the Revolutionary War, so we are really unusual in that regard. But if you have information or good data or good resources on the 54th, we'd really appreciate getting that from you.
I mean, we can look back and see what we were using. We were obviously focused on Newburyport and, tracking down whatever information we could find through multiple sources. Once we identified names of people that we knew were there. So we'll try to look back, see what we have.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Again, thank you for all of this. I'm just wondering, I know you said you guys were doing some guided tours. Did you guys put together like a cultural map or something that people can do a self-guided tour, or how is that disseminated?
So we haven't had a chance yet to put together a self-guided tour, but Jordy has been leading tours for school groups and for senior citizens in the area, and we're hoping to apply for a Mass Humanities grant to fund a public history student who can help us create that public history tour, building on Jordy's work, and that would take the tour group to almost every sign.
Thank you.
Great. One of the questions that, we're in a circumstance where we're searching for practical suggestions for the challenges of putting together these things. And so perhaps you can, any of you could speak about, it seems like you have a group of people in the community who went to you, Jordy, and were able to sort of aim and direct the initiative, and then of course you picked it up and going to go. And I just wondered maybe if you all could speak about sort of like the challenge of public engagement with something like this, because as Kabria said, and we know it is a tremendous amount of work to sort of like gather up. To interpret, it's one thing, but to actually do the research, and so I wondered maybe if you could speak about sort of like the behind-the-scenes challenges of trying to do both things and community buy-in into that.
Sid, would you like to talk about community buy-in?
It seems that nearly everyone we ask to help either pursue a topic or look over our sign before we submit it to the fabricators, there's always an enthusiastic response. And the public, I know 3 of us and others have received so many just expressions of gratitude. I'm constantly running into people that will say, are you the person that's doing this? Is wonderful, and what can we do to help? We have a lot of volunteers for everything, and although in terms of the track work, we are blessed with having Kabria being a historian and is able to sort of keep us on task, and Jordy and I, of course, Jordy had already amassed a great treasure trove of the Black history that existed from our historians. I also, as a member of the community involved in a lot of different community groups, have been able to help with publicity, other things like that. I'm not sure I've answered every piece of your question. If you want to follow up.
Yeah, no, that's that was what I was wondering about. It sounds like you get a team of community engaged people. We have, as was mentioned, we have Historic Northampton, David Ruggles Center, where we have local historians and community members engaged in, have been engaged in doing research. And it seems like you have an enthusiastic group of people in the community who can pick up some of those strands, because obviously it's challenging to, to sort of like, do all those things, even besides interpreting. So thank you for that. Are there other questions from commissioners or thoughts? I mean, this has obviously been sort of inspiring and great in terms of, thinking about for us how we can execute this, or think about doing something such as this. But others at all? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just maybe say two things. One is that we have about, I think, a group of 8, maybe 6 to 8. Jordy, if there's more, correct me, but we have just members of the community who volunteered their time to read our signs and critique them. And to me, that's a form of peer review, and that's very important. And then we also have an editor at the Peabody Essex Museum who volunteered her time. And she said, I believe in this project, I believe in what you're doing, I will edit your signs for free. I mean, she's volunteering. So it was wonderful to have that kind of support and to really push this along. We developed a process too to kind of streamline things. I think Jordy has been great, and Sid too, with talking to our city council, because that's how we funded this. It was funded through the Community Preservation Act. It's a sizable amount of money, but Jordy and Sid made the case for why this is important for the community. And I think that helped too. And then Jordan, maybe you can talk too about the way that we're engaging descendant communities. That is so very important to what we're doing. Actually, this Saturday we have an event with a descendant that we feature in our sign. So it's a real holistic approach, I think, and partly why I think we got community buy-in. Jordy?
Yeah, many strands we could talk about there. Just in terms of descendants, one of the deputy director of our local historical society, although now she's actually moved on from that role, is a genealogist, and she was very enthusiastic about this project. She and I worked in particular on the research associated with one of the people we feature on the signs, who was a domestic servant back at the turn of the century. And I started asking her to track down living family, living descendants, to try to make those connections between what we're profiling happened here 100 years ago, 200 years ago, with the present day. Because we're constantly talking about how history is not only about the past, but it's about the present, about the living present, and it's about the future. And we've been somewhat successful via this genealogist, again, volunteering her time, to identify and then help us contact descendants of, I'd say, 3 or 4 of the people that we profile in these signs. The great nephew of one of them flew from the West Coast to visit Newburyport and check out where his great aunt, used to live and work. And I thought that was really a wonderful connection. Just this Saturday, as Cabrillo was mentioning, we're having a couple of descendants from another man named Louis Tyree, who lived here 120 years ago, who they lived down in Dorchester and Milton, and they, along with some of their children, are going to come up and help us with the unveiling and the commemoration of this sign. And we've had a lot of contact with them over the past year, and they've been extremely enthusiastic that their ancestor is being commemorated in this way. And one of them said this is like a miracle, as she's contacting her relatives all over the country. That, I guess, story, if you want to call it that, has also really engaged people in town. People are really interested that, for instance, some of the historical echoes, it just so happens that the man we profile became a lawyer, and he went to Harvard Law School as well as the BU School of Law. One of his descendants is a lawyer, and he also went to Harvard Law School. You know, the trail was blazed generations ago.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful thing. On one of our signs, we end actually with the quote of a woman who was the grandniece of the person being profiled. She also lives in the Boston area, and the quote is essentially along the lines of, it's great that it's good that we should honor him. He worked really hard. You know, this is a man we should all remember. So, so that whole aspect, that's been another way to engage with the public. We've tried really hard, I think as Sid and Cabria has said, to try to make sure this is not just Sid and Cabria and Jordy's signs, but it's sort of the community, a little bit, as much as possible, community ownership of these signs. So, you know, funded through our Community Preservation Committee and our City Council, having this 6 to 8 ring of reviewers who are historians, retired professors, local historians, and then also a ring of the Black community in Newburyport. And there are, I don't know, 6 or 8 or 10 people who volunteered to, again, look at our images, look at our text, give us feedback. We want to engage with as many people as we can, and we know everyone's lives are super busy, so it's always a challenge to try to reach out and grab people's attention. But we've been trying to do that and to kind of keep having the project come up in the public eye through these events and so forth that we've been organizing.
Well, that's, you know, again, it sounds like a fantastic project. Now I know I have more destinations to go in Massachusetts to sort of check out history. We are closing in on time, actually, with the group. And so we're going to, because we're so excited about the group that's here, and we took so much of this other group from Newburyport's presenting to us, that we're gonna move on. Thank you all so much for taking the time to share the work. Can we reach out to, well, I know where to find you, Cabria, but is it okay if the commission reaches out if we have other questions? Would that be fine?
Absolutely.
That'd be
Great. Okay. Well, thank you all again. Obviously, stay on if you'd like. Otherwise, we'll have to catch up another time. But thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks. So it is time for, we're very fortunate to have the Sojourner Truth Committee here to also share the work that they have been doing for a very long time. So I thought perhaps y'all could come up and introduce yourselves, and then maybe, you know, to whatever, the floor sort of is yours, and we have some questions to ask after you all present. So come forward, and maybe we could like move the podium back if there's chairs for everybody, you know what I mean? So we could like sit amongst people as opposed to.
Where are you going to go?
I mean, I'm just thinking if we have 4 people presenting, we can, you know, everyone doesn't have to stand is my point.
3? Oh, you guys.
3, okay, 3 presenting. You want to sit there or join us in the circle here?
We can put another chair.
Yeah, I'll move this and put a chair.
We just need to make sure that whoever speaks uses the mic. So that people, yep.
Did you start the recording?
I think someone did. It said transcript.
Bring this mic over there too?
You said 3, 2, 1, I guess.
They don't. I would.
Let me just try it right now. Garrett, come around.
So just when you're speaking, you just have to click that.
Reynolds, I'm not planning to speak, so let me go to the end. Go ahead, Peter, you start.
You sit here.
Yeah, Linda.
Yes.
Recording in progress.
You guys can go. You can go. You're green.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Good morning. I mean, good morning.
Let's get.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reverend Peter Ives. I've been the minister in this community for many years at the First Churches of Northampton. And one of the most important goals I've had since I've been here is to carry on the tradition of Sojourner Truth and to tell as many stories, as many people about the importance of Sojourner Truth. Over the years, it became part of my sermons at First Churches for many, many years. And one of the most important things we did was to create a wonderful committee of people here in this city to basically talk about the importance of the Sojourner Truth tradition. And I'm here to talk to all of you. Reynolds, who was so important over the years for publicizing the Sojourner Truth tradition here in the Valley, and Diane, and so important. These were so important people, and we met regularly. We just met regularly on every month. Every month we met regularly. And Linda. And you know, and I don't know how to begin to talk about it. I mean, and I'm just about to leave and just walk out because I feel overwhelmed.
You have notes.
I've got my notes here, but
Why don't you just read that?
Yeah, we can begin by just maybe telling us just when you. So I just want to say that when I went over to Peter, he held up the classic book of a collection of articles. See right over there?
this is the book.
That work, which we will. I don't know if
That's one for your committee.
we'll have to figure out how we can actually convey it to
Yeah, I want you-
those who are online.
Okay, I'm going to read it.
Okay, great.
I need my wife to read this.
I'm Jenny. I'm the assistant.
Welcome, Jenny.
So Peter,
Yep.
the mic. Okay. I have to, no. I have to get my glasses. Okay. Hang on. Peter put this together, but. Oh yeah, this is for your committee, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the
yeah.
book.
Yeah. So, you want to say it's very good to be here? So, you want me to start?
Yeah. you said-
Okay. So you met Peter Ives, Linda Wallach, Reynolds, Winslow, Diane. I'm only an adjunct.
Welcome.
I wasn't on the committee
Okay.
at the beginning as the others were, so that's why I'm not planning to speak tonight.
Okay.
You have the transcript. The building of the Sojourner Truth statue in Florence came directly out of the anti-racism network formed in 1992 after the innocent jury verdict in the police beating of Rodney King, an African American, in Los Angeles. Peter, I saw this as a clear case of racial injustice and resolved to bring people together in Northampton concerned about issues of race and social justice. I reached out to the Reverend Dr. Andrea Vazian, then Director of Communitas, an anti-racism educational group, and to Marjorie Richardson, Associate Dean for Minority Affairs at Smith College. Andrea would have been here, couldn't be here for another prior commitment. Marjorie sadly has died. We then reached out to the wider community to join us, and by the end of 1992, upwards of 40 community members from all backgrounds had formed the Committee for Northampton 1993, with a focus on eliminating racism and building community. We planned and held 55 events in 1993. The mayor of Northampton, Mary Ford, at the time declared 1993 the year of eliminating racism and building community in Northampton. A banner across Main Street declared this. Ongoing task forces, groups focused on creating a speakers bureau, working with school officials on anti-racism curricula, hosting community potluck suppers, and one group realizing that 1993 would mark the 150th anniversary of Sojourner Truth's arrival in town, brainstormed ways to honor this historical moment. This is the origin story of the Sojourner Truth Memorial statue, so beloved now in Florence. The idea of a statue took hold among committee members, and as 1993 ended, a tribute concert to Sojourner on November 21st kicked off grassroots fundraising for a statue to Sojourner Truth. And the legacy of the Committee for Northampton 93 became the Sojourner Truth Memorial Statue Committee. Nancy Felton, whom you might know from Broadside Books, became the chair. Nancy also is very sorry not to be here. She was hoping to be. We estimated then that we would need to raise $200,000 to build the statue. Generous private donors began to come forward. Individuals gave concerts and held fundraising events. Pennies for Sojourner jars appeared at many local stores and in city schools, with students eagerly joining the campaign. Banks became supportive, especially Florence Savings Bank. At the same time, the committee was holding many open community meetings, particularly in Florence, where we hoped the statue could be located, as that was where Sojourner had lived and worked. Not everyone in Florence, however, thought that was a good idea. In fact, there were heated meetings and vocal opposition, not just to the placement of the statue, but to the very idea of a statue. Some people favored a handicapped access ramp at the Lilly Library or a scholarship fund to Order Truth. We are not a statue kind of town, was said. The tide turned, however, as more and more lifelong residents of Florence spoke in favor of the statue. Ward 5 City Councilor Linda Desmond voiced her support. Ed Shanahan, a former Gazette editor and a Florence resident, wrote a supportive opinion piece in the Daily Hampshire Gazette. Then there was a giant leap forward in fundraising efforts. State Senator Stan Rosenberg lent his support, and in 1996 secured a $100,000 grant for the committee from the state's Monument Grant Program, which had just been created to fund 5 projects honoring women. This was the only grant awarded to a Western Massachusetts organization. We felt we were on our way, but there was much more to be done. Inviting sculptors to submit to a competitive scene, finding jurors, involving the community, site permits, so many tasks. But I shall let Reynolds and Linda follow up here with further details. Yeah. But before they do, I'm going to say the last bit. Do you want to say the last bit?
Before Reynolds and Linda speak, there's one last word I'd like to share. When we finally dedicated the Sojourner Truth Memorial Statue in Florence, near to her home on Park Street on October 6, 2002, a reporter asked me, "Reverend Ives, why did you take 9 years to build that statue?" And the only answer I had was, we simply had to do this whole project right. And these are the people that have surrounded me for this whole time who have helped me to do it right. And so I just want Reynolds and all of you to help us understand and help them understand that we really tried to do this right for the entire city. Reynolds, talk more.
I'm going to pass it on to Linda Wallach.
Well,
not for the purpose.
I urge you to look at this book. Tommy, if you want to hold it up.
I've got it.
You got it.
We gave
because it chronicles just about every step of the way, including emails and it's. I think you guys are getting one as a gift.
Gave them one.
That's it.
I don't think Peter talked about the controversy we had when people protested that there were no maquettes, small statues being submitted by women. So that was one obstacle we had, and we decided we had to open up the judging and open it up to more sculptors, and we did that. And I believe a lot of them were on display at Florence Bank, weren't they?
Yep.
And that was wonderful. And what I don't remember is whether or not our judging was blind.
It was, I think, originally.
Was it blind? Did we know the name of the sculptor, whether it was male or female? Because that came as a result, I think, of this
It says a blind process right here.
blind, thank you. And the final result was so stunning, and the sculptor even got feedback from us about her skirt and how it could have some movement to it, and I remember that clearly. I remember the day it was installed. I had tears in my eyes. It was a big deal. We're all crying. Oh.
I remember seeing all the maquettes at Historic Northampton.
Yes, they were showed there.
And you could vote on the ones you liked.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of my first introductions. I had just moved here a year before that, I believe.
Yeah. What else should I say?
Did you mention the matching grant? You got another 100,000.
Oh,
State legislature.
okay.
In addition.
Yeah.
In addition. But I remember this wonderful woman, I think her name was Penny, was it? Who she was our fundraiser.
Monica.
I don't know.
Monica Green.
Monica with the pennies.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pennies, the jars you went into.
We had
State
jars
Street.
everywhere,
All the schools had
all over
pennies.
town, filled with
It was
pennies.
real community.
So it was a community outpouring. And I think what disturbed me so much was that there was protest about this statue. People, didn't want a statue in Florence. They didn't want a statue of a black woman in Florence. That's what it felt like to us. Very clearly, smacked of racism. And wow, what else?
Well,
Reynolds.
We want
you-
Reynolds to talk. Reynolds, you were at the beginning of all this in front of the statue, and one of the key people that made that statue happen. Can you talk to us right now?
If my voice will permit me to talk for a couple of minutes. The reason I had Linda speak before me, my name is Reynolds Winslow, by the way. The reason I had her speak before me is because we worked on the same floor at University of Massachusetts. And she realized that when I lived in Amherst at the time, I'm a transplant from Syracuse to Amherst. And she realized, I think, that at a point I was unable to say no to activities and interventions in Amherst. So when she said, you should come and see the slide transparencies of these 24-inch plaster maquettes that were submitted to us. And I said, I know nothing about it, but she was very persuasive. And again, I couldn't say no. So I said, yes, I will help take a look at and see what we have before us. Knowing very little about what transpired in Northampton, Florence area, except I knew that during a year of the Committee for Committee Against Racism in Northampton, they launched an opportunity for the whole year to attack the racist situations in Florence. And so it galvanized an effort that was critically important. So I said, I'm in. And that's when I began to talk to the doctor here and became enthused. And this was 22 years ago.
That's right.
And I haven't left yet. I don't know what's keeping me, but
More than 22.
I guess there's a necessity that I perceive as necessary for me to be involved. Thanks the Lord. But my entry here is to give some credence and some anecdotes to what Peter has already laid out for you, and which will be contained in that book that brown book that he put together, if you want details. But one of the thoughts that occurred to me, that as the maquettes came in and we realized that there were no submissions by females, that brought us to put another request for maquettes, so they went out again. And interestingly enough, we had some entries from female sculptors. One of them came in with a horse. I remember that very distinctly, and I thought, well, artisans have their interpretations, and that person wanted to have a horse. So it did not make it, obviously. And the other important thing about the selection, when it came down to first a dozen or about 10 to 12 initial ones, and a few more, maybe 5, 6 more, the critical piece was that many of them lacked, no, let me put it this way. It was important that we, Sojourner Truth, look like me. Some of the impressions did not look like me. So we realized that the Negroid features needed to be part of the statue. So hence, Jay Warren from Ohio was a selected person to present this, and he was the winner, to make a very long story short. The judging, or at least the interpretation of those features, were helped by residents of Amherst that I employed, the committee employed, to come and take a look. And I'm only going to mention one person. Rest in peace, John Bracey. You're here among us. And you were very helpful in helping us to make that decision, that choice. The other, when the word was mentioned that Northampton people did not think this was a statue town, and they didn't like the fact that they were going to lose some bubbly fountains, particularly the one where the statue now exists. It was touch and go, and it was really wondering at one point whether we'd get a statue in the first place, because it was, where are we going to put it? Finally, we made a choice, and with Stan Rosenberg, that grant was affected as a state senator. Now, getting to the nitty-gritty of putting the statue in place, we met in several homes at that time as a committee. The committee numbered about a dozen people. At one point, the pedestal was ordered from South Africa. The pedestal and shipment got cracked. Time was of the essence, long shipment time, so we found another pedestal up north in a local quarry. That helped us to relax a bit for the ultimate installation of this statue. So we scrambled a bit, and then the other observation was, as two artisans putting down the walkway of stones, and I can't tell you what kind of granite stones they were, but they were irregular, and some were raised up. So it concerned the committee that we'd have a lawsuit on our hands if someone fell over these raised statues. So they had to be reset carefully. After they started, we realized the problem. They were corrected, and of course, even now, a wheelchair running over those stones is probably a little difficult. So currently we don't see wheelchairs wheeling over that area. The dedication of the statue. We expected about 50 people. I think about 200 to 250 persons came.
400, I thought.
Oh, I couldn't count. I was too busy.
You were too busy.
But I don't know whether there's any busy.
Large.
It was a large crowd, and we were joyous, of course. And that's probably, I could bring you what we're doing now. I think the important thing that has emanated from this statue and from our quest to reach out to, at first was Hampshire County, and then secondly, after probably 4 years ago, we moved into Hampden County, realizing that there's a large percentage of minority people of color, that could be persuaded to enter the competition as graduating seniors, submitting competitive essays on social justice that we could evaluate with a small committee. Parameters were strict, and initially we started out with maybe 2 $500 scholarships. To make a long story short, we're about 55 scholars now that are out in the world doing their thing in social justice, we hope, or at least imbued with the idea of connecting with people around the world. And with that, I think I will ask if there's anything more that, yes.
We spent a considerable amount of time fine-tuning the wording on all the plaques that were erected at the statue, because we wanted people to come and be able to read her story. So I remember many meetings, and we finally got it right, I think, and had those plaques installed, and that felt really good. I'm sorry Steve couldn't be here. Was he invited?
Steve Stringer?
Yeah.
Should be.
Oh, he wasn't in the beginning. He wasn't around.
Well, it was actually 600 people, is the article about what happened.
I knew it was.
Y'all lowballing us here.
I knew it was a large number.
And Karen heard and was interviewed at the end, and they said, teacher in Bridge Street School, said, hopefully it's another way to fight racism. Children will see this and say to their parents, who is Sojourner Truth?
Right.
There you go.
600.
I knew it was.
All right.
Goodness.
Thank you for this inspiring and emotional testimony to the commission. The passion after so many years of doing the work is really inspiring. Let's open it up to the commissioners. I'm looking at the Zoom screen for you all, but those who are in the room, Rachel has a comment. We got about 8 minutes left.
Yeah, well, just a quick comment. I remember my kids at the Unitarian Society collecting pennies, and went everywhere, all around, every single time, every single Sunday.
Yes. Other comments, questions? Yeah.
I just want to, if I might, endorse Rachel's comment, because I remember those penny jars, and my first reaction was, this will take forever. And my second reaction was, Peter Ives will make it happen one way or the other, it doesn't matter. But my third reaction really was, this is brilliant, because the entire community became involved in it and said, what are those jars for? It was this enormous educational endeavor. It was brilliant.
It was.
And just to sort of, 55 programs, everyone.
Yeah.
The Year to End Racism. You know, I've talked to Peter about, I mean, what an extraordinary effort and commitment on the part of the mayor and the town, you know, our city of Northampton, to try to engage in these questions. I wanted to go back and ask a quick question about, I had heard part of the origin stories with the committee around racial incidents at the high school. You know, we've had high school students here speak to us, and I wondered to what degree do you think the committee, but, you know, again, so there's this effort after, so this Rodney King moment, and then there's the statue, right? So there's two different actual things, you know, the outgrowth of the year to end racism in '93. If any of the committee recall those incidents, or just want to sort of bring up the intersections between the broader society and also just here at Northampton. Because it was mentioned in passing, I think, maybe.
Well, though, can I just speak? Because
Sure.
I was involved in the high school.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was involved in the high school with kids. We had 3 kids in the high school. There were racial incidents. That had been happening in 92, 93.
Yep.
You'll notice in the book there is a whole piece on a high school student, Natasha George, who became very important and was on the committee as a student. She was on the committee for Northampton, and her mother, Janice Barnes. And there was a big outreach, which I know I was involved in from the school end, to work on racism. And, you know, Bruce Willard was a superintendent at that time, and he would come to meetings. I remember Marjorie Richardson was very important in that. She had children at the high school, too, or a son at the high school. And we did have out of that, we started the high school PTO at that point. And one of its remits was to look at racism and to have a work on curriculum. And Bruce Willard was extremely supportive of the superintendent in Northampton. And we had high school. At that time, we had the annual Martin Luther King Junior celebration. It was still being held at the Academy of Music. And we had high school students involved in that. Frank Tudrin, who was the vice principal at the time, sadly has died, but he was crucial in, he was also the football coach, which which helped a lot. So we did do a lot of outreach at the time. I think, I'm not sure, because many of us that were involved, you know, our kids graduated. We hope that some of that stayed there as a foundation. But there were students. I mean, I was, I obviously knew about the committee a lot, and then I was working in the high school. There was a lot of overlap. I remember we had lots of community meetings, and and we had a big potluck at the high school with all kinds of different foods, and different people spoke from traditions that we brought to the school.
Okay. And just to get on record, the committee of Northampton Against Racism, what was the title back then that was established?
Committee for Northampton.
The Committee for Northampton.
1993, but the motto was eliminating racism, building community.
Is that, everybody? So and that's going to be the organization entity that's going to continue, of course, to help with the statue, and then to this day.
So you might want to be updated in that originally the Committee for Northampton became the Sojourner Truth Memorial Statue Committee, then just the Memorial Statue Committee. The Sojourner Truth Memorial Committee, we dropped the statue. But now, and then Ruggles, Steve Strymer wanted to start the Ruggles Center and ask if he could do that under the umbrella of the Committee for Northampton. So for a while, both Sojourner Truth and Ruggles were the two organizations under that umbrella. Recently, we both obtained our own 501c3s. I know you're aware of that. But
we're telling the world not Usman Power Grade. This trajectory. No, I said that this is for everybody. I mean,
right. I know.
Everyone on the road.
So we now have, I think it's a year this fall that we will have had our own 501c3. We have As scholarships were mentioned, when the statue was created, after the statue was done, the committee took that on as one of our major activities. And this year, 2025, will be our 20th anniversary of giving scholarships. And I think the number might be now 60, 61, so I'd have to go back and count, but I think it's 61. Last year we gave 5, and the year before that we gave 7 $1,500 scholarships.
Wow.
So the amount of money and the number of scholarships has gone up.
Incredible.
So we're thinking we might be putting out those little cans again to raise money for more scholarships and
Incredible.
to follow up the students who receive scholarships to see what they're doing now.
Fantastic. We're at 30 minutes. I want to give, no.
I should also add that the Sojourner Truth, there's school groups. You mentioned school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add, that's been a huge, a part of what you've done, right?
Absolutely. We've had many grants to take students on tours from Springfield, Northampton, and to provide teachers with materials. And that we plan to continue. We have a grant outstanding now that we hope to hear soon that involve bringing students to the statue for walking tours.
Yeah, which is an important element.
Say one other thing, that we are a very biracial committee, which is not shown here tonight, but current members, there are 9, with one more coming on soon. Of the 9, I believe only 3 are white, Peter, myself, and Carol Reinhardt. All the others are black or biracial. So,
yeah. Fantastic. I mean, sure, you gave the tour. Thank you for mentioning the tour. I'm going to let Garrett get in, and we do need to, sadly, we could spend a whole session. Hopefully, we will do a session eventually. Peter and I have talked about that to really chart this history, because it's a really important recent history, that you all have been a part of. But Garrett, you get the last question. Let's throw it online as a passionate one of commissioners.
So I just want to, first of all, thank you all for the work you've done. This presentation has been very inspiring to me, and I'm sure it's some other commissioners. And it's been really interesting to see the parallels between your work, what started it, and what has really pushed this movement forward. And so just briefly, I was wondering, because this is something you guys committed to over 20 years ago, are continuing. I was just wondering if you had any sort of advice or wisdom to pass along for folks who are trying to do that, and that's just my.
Repeat the question.
Do you guys have any wisdom to pass along, or other inspiration for?
Find ways to bring community together in in all kinds of form and fashion. I think in the book there is 55 events. They range from potlucks to school things, to big concerts, to gospel choir, to Black Nativity, which we did in December 1993 with Ingrid Askew as the director, held at First Churches. It was electric. We had to put on more performances because people wanted to come.
Felicia, last word.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's all good.
You mentioned community, and it just reminded me of I used to work at Springfield College, and I got introduced to the PAMUSA, the Pan-African Historical Museum, and I'm wondering, and that's where I really learned about the tours, that go through Springfield and Northampton and Florence. And I'm wondering, you spoke of community. Was there any collaboration with any of those tours, or because I know that they did some of that, or have you done any collaboration? Were they supportive of any of the work?
Well, there was collaboration with the schools, like with the Springfield school system, and we also actually gave a grant to a teacher in Springfield 2 years ago to do a project, a curriculum on civil rights, and he did a wonderful job, I think. I hope it will get replicated. But and so other collaborations that you can think of?
No, but that is a critical piece, that collaboration with that individual. To find individuals out there who are eager and hungry to impart what they see as a broad stroking to reach students who are particularly eager or maybe not eager. It's to open up the mind, which is important. And if you can do that with a handful of students, they will in turn reach out to other students, as we're hoping to do with recent graduates or even past graduates, to come back and give back. So that's important to us.
Yep.
And I just thought we had grants from the Northampton Education Fund, collaboration with high school teachers there. There were 3 high school teachers that were very involved. This was quite, now going back maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yep.
But yes, there have been collaborations all along, and if you look at our website, it talks about some of the school partnerships we've had.
Yeah, which would be wonderful, going back to something Bill had mentioned earlier about sort of gathering Ruggles and other, the types of work that you all are doing. You mentioned Rob's taking notes, we have transcripts, but if there is a list available to send to us, I think we'd really appreciate it for the appendix.
We have it.
Oh, from that group? Okay.
We from one of the groups.
Oh, fantastic.
This committee has given us the chronology of their programming over the last 3 or 4 years, and will be part of the appendix to this report.
I think that chronology went back.
It went,
maybe
more than that. I can't remember. Some grants go 3, 4, 5, but yes, it's there.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. Well, again, just thank you, for my commissioners and the community for all the work, and we're looking forward to more great things y'all are doing, and hopefully we'll be able to bring back MLK celebration. No, I was kidding. But that's a whole nother conversation for another time. So thank you all, but we do need to move on.
Okay.
We really, really appreciate it. Have a great evening.
Sojourner has descendants.
And, Sojourner Truth descendants. Okay.
I learned quite a bit about them recently.
Okay.
So just to let you know that.
Yeah, fantastic. Sounds like another excellent thing to add too. Okay.
Where they're available.
Thank you.
I've never seen it till tonight.
Okay.
That's not at Historic Northampton, for example. It should be.
Peter, people are wondering where they can buy this book.
Perfect. Thank you.
There's no place you can buy it.
Really?
That I know of.
Was keeping time.
I don't know if Broadside has any more.
Thank you. All right, thank you all.
Oh, like Historic Northampton doesn't, I don't think they carry it. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that.
We will deal with that.
Okay, but that's, because it is very important.
When did it come out?
Peter did it in 2012.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful book.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's
And it
wonderful.
should be something that this Reparations Commission puts into the world.
That's second on our list for right this moment, actually. So let's do that. Let's make its pivot relatively quickly.
I'm not parting with it.
Does everyone has the agenda, right? We all good? Okay. I have a copy of the report that I printed out, also, Bill, for people who are here, just to sort of have. I want to, before we get started talking about that, I did want to take time. I know Marcia and I had a conversation, and I just want to talk briefly about, as everyone knows, I sent the email, Sarah is no longer on the commission. Oh, yeah. The reunion in the back for everyone who's online. I don't know if you could see it. So what I just wanted to take a few minutes to just talk about, I know that, as I mentioned, Marcia and I had a little conversation yesterday. Just yeah, we could still,
That's it.
yeah, I'm looking around.
They came to.
Okay. And I just wanted to, part of the process is to, obviously have a conversation about where we stand with different elements of the project. Obviously, well, not obviously, I just want to say, how much I appreciate, and I think I can speak for Commission, for the hard work that Sarah put in, and obviously we're, disappointed and that we no longer have her working with us on this extraordinary work. But I did want to just take a moment if people have anything particular to ask or comments from the commissioners about Sarah departing. I just want to open the floor for that just for a few minutes.
Well, Usman, it would be important to say what you are thinking, given that, and that might help open up the conversation.
Go ahead, Marcia. Because tell me more about what I said, just because I'm trying to remember what.
About looking at, well, that basically there's an opportunity here to, okay, we've got to go back, figure out what's in those documents, in those Google Docs, et cetera, I think that would help at least give people a place to jump off from.
Yeah, okay, sure. And actually, as I'm doing that, I should probably introduce Anthony or Sage. We did not have a chance to do that. We jumped right into our agenda. And so I just want to officially thank Anthony for coming here and help me correlating some of these materials already as our administrator. I know that some of the research that Marcia mentioned that Sarah was working on, what we can, and we're going to talk about this, or like what we have or don't have, is going to be something that we're going to look forward to Sage getting at and really helping us be able to research. So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that because we didn't do it at the beginning. So I'll start off by saying that I am not 100% sure what Sarah left in Google folders. And so maybe if other commissioners can talk about the projects they were working on with Sarah that we need to continue so we can have a sense of it. Part of what I did was I had emailed a few commissioners to ask to send me everything that they've worked on. I know that Sarah did work on the survey. That's right. I mean, she was the primary point person on the survey. But outside of that, I actually don't know. She did not, Marcia, leave what she worked on in terms of the report. I was planning on reaching out to her and asking if she did write anything or the research, if she could share that with us. But the floor is open to people if they have a better sense of some of what she had mentioned and what's left for us to do that she was working on by herself. Yeah, go ahead, Rachel. What's one thing?
Yeah, one thing is, I would hope that we could ask her to pass on the ownership of any Google documents that she has. For instance, I worked with Historic Northampton on an extensive list of programs and activities related to African American history, and somebody worked very hard on coming up with a list, which I no longer have, that I turned over to her.
Okay.
So that is one example of one kind of item that we want to get our hands on.
Okay, great. So I'll ask her about that. Others, Garrett or Bill, Lisa or anyone, do you guys have?
I think the stuff that we had talked about, Usman, was, okay, we've looked through those documents, those Google Docs. So you had looked through it, I had looked through it earlier in the process. Mm-hmm. And those documents, if you look through them individually, mm-hmm. Which is why every time Sarah would say, go in and comment, there wasn't a lot to comment to. The only thing that was built out clearly were the recommendations, which I believe people, we've talked about several times and worked on. And without the document that Sarah put together, mm-hmm. Or if there is a document that Sarah, because I don't know, I've raised that a couple of times, like where is the actual report? Because it's hard to understand how you have recommendations without a report. Because recommendations without a report means the recommendations were developed as an individual piece of work, which doesn't make sense because the recommendation should come from the research work that was done. So we need that report as you and I talked about, a one-to-one correlation, if there is any, on that. So that's the first place I thought we.
Yeah. So let's start there. So has anyone seen the report that Sarah was working on or have access to it? I know I did email and ask Bill about it, and Bill did not see it. Garrett, did you see it ever? Felicia, no?
No.
Okay, so Monica, Jeremy, no? Okay. And Marissa?
Yeah, I think just for purposes of discussion, this is what Sarah's referred to in the past as the narrative.
The narrative, okay.
And or sometimes as the case for reparations in Northampton, as I conceived of it. But
so right now, Marcia, as far as just talking about it, right, that we don't have that, right? So now we need to move forward, I guess, and get to the second part of your statement, right, which is let's talk about figuring out the research. So let me put it this way. So the answer is no in the room. Okay, fine. Each of us have been engaged in research in different areas, right? And so my question for everybody in the commission is that the research, the correlation between the research you've done and the recommendations. If we were to go through, which I printed out, here's a copy for you. I printed out some copies. If we were to go through, and Bill, thank you for sort of organizing it and getting it in a situation where we could sort of look at it. It was emailed to us, Marcia, Renika, Jeremy, and Marissa, so I had paper copies here for those who are here. But if we were to go through the recommendations, the research we did, this is Marcia's point, to come to the conclusion about the recommendations, right? That's something that's going to be an important part of the report. Right. In other words, we need to talk about, I've been working with the Ruggles Center, I've been working with Historic Northampton, I've worked with Dylan Gaffney, and so for a section, I'm just giving you an example, everybody, for the intro and a section that looks at enslavement and sort of legacy of slavery, that I'd feel comfortable taking my notes and being able, Bill, to work on that narrative portion of it. But if we go through each of the recommendations, the critique that's implied, which we'll just say, is how would we explain to people the research we did to come up with that recommendation? Some don't need it, but if there are some on there, that's the priority I see to getting to a preliminary draft of the report. Does that make sense? That too, Rudy?
I would differ with you on just one tiny little point. I love what you just said, very spot on. All the recommendations need to come from the research work. We just don't throw out recommendations without a clear understanding of where this is coming from. Otherwise, it's just an agenda that somebody's bringing to the table. Or maybe something like, let's say we talked to the Sojourner Truth people and they said, well, these are things we've been working on since 1940. And they've been reiterating it every time we see it come up. Then we'd have to go back and then pull that information and say, okay, the Sojourner Truth people decided to do this because of something that happened in 1940. Not, oh well, we just want to do this. That's not my understanding of how we were approaching this from the beginning.
Okay. Other comments? So, I mean, one thing that is obvious in the report is the work that Bill and others have done in terms of the research into restricted and racist covenants. So, that is an element of within the recommendations that are pretty clear. Are there other elements of the recommendations that we can identify to be able to articulate the sort of process that we've gone through or not?
I have some documents I've been working on that I was sharing either with the community engagement group or with Sarah. And what I want to do is I'm in Google Drive right now. I can just share them with everybody on the commission.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great. Okay. I mean, just to go through, number 3 in the item is rename and co-name streets. We have some great ideas for that. How will we go about thinking about framing it? I mean, I'm looking down just even at the footnotes, Bill, which are very helpful, which get at some of that history. I feel like it intersects with some of the research that I've done around Ruggles, around Florence, around African American history. So that one, but.
Well, there was the health kind of information that I got too.
So if we know that, then there should have been a section of the report that spoke to that. And where is that? That's what I'm trying to find out.
Well, the section of the report that has to do with historic markers around the abolitionist struggle, renaming streets, that's what I just described. That's number 3 and 4 on our recommendations.
No, where is the written part of that says this is what the outgrowth of that? Where's the thing that we're correlating that to? Where's that written part?
There isn't a written part for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's not.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying is that it's in the work that people have done, but these two items are not items that I've written up and shared with anybody.
Okay.
Others? 6.
Usman?
Yep.
Can I just point something out that's here? Am I allowed to speak for 1 second?
You can come around and come tell me. Come on. You can turn those mics on.
It says right here, in terms of the research, that you've got a bunch of streets named after enslavers. That's the reason why this came up. That's what Bill wrote here.
Yeah.
So in Clause C in Part 3 says, establish a committee appointed by the mayor. This is the recommendation.
Yeah.
Because you've got a whole bunch of streets that are named after former enslavers.
Yeah.
And that's the basic basis.
Yeah, for that.
Research that was done proves that the corner where my Parsons Street and many others, Edward, these are people that enslaved people, and they have streets named after them, and now you want to rename them. That's the research that was based on the recommendation.
Yeah.
Some of them have it right in the...
It's in the... So my point would just be to Bill, would be just making sure, like, just talking about, like, how do we know that they were slavers? You know what I mean? Like, just the research that would go into identifying Stoddard and these places. I mean, I know it from the work that people did at the historic Northampton, you know what I mean? And so it's a matter of us being sure that we're sort of like, just syncing that research up with the execution of it.
Yeah, I think that's doable. I mean, we've talked about this many times, all of these things, many times at these meetings, and I think putting in, I think the final report, I'd put it in as when we have the larger narrative, but I put in the rationale. The footnotes will become section 1 of each recommendation, being the rationale. For the moment, I think we can put them in as footnotes. Anyone have suggestions, I'm happy to include it. We've been over all this. I think it's easy enough to do.
I don't think we've been over all this because we don't have these things written up. That's the point. We've talked about it. That's very different than having it in writing. Like, it's time to, folks to get clear now. Our one person, the chairperson who was insisting on writing all this themselves has left. So we've got to know where these things are.
Yep.
It can't be ambiguous anymore.
I'm just Marsha, I'm going back to some of our notes. Like, I'm looking at, December 23rd. Sarah has shared a lot of stuff this is looking at demographics in progress in terms of municipal populations of Black and African American residents. So I do think that it exists. It's there. And I can see some of that through going through emails from past meetings. So I don't want to, I want us to speak with truth and make, we may not think we have stuff, but if we really went through and looked at the things that Sarah has sent out through each meetings, I feel like we could come and be able to resurrect, for lack of a better word, the documents that folks are feeling. Perfect.
And actually, Felicia, would you mind, so right now, this is what I mean about data collection, right now, if we could just, because I went through and tried, and I, for whatever reason, maybe wasn't on some of the emails, because I just literally went through all of her emails, and I print out what I found. But if you just wouldn't mind putting it together, even as a PDF, the shared document thing is tough because it's one individual shared document, whereas if it's one long document that has all the things. Go ahead, Garrett.
We have an administrative assistant who I think could help correlate that, not to...
no, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing with Anthony that, so Anthony, you'd be able to take all of sort of the research that Sarah did and just sort of put it together into one document, right?
We need an email address too.
Okay. So we'll do that before you. What else?
I just wanted to say, what we're looking at here, again, this is not even close to a final document. This is a preliminary. These are recommendations, and I agree, there needs to be some context clues there, and we can work that. There's going to be, when we finally present it, there will be a preamble. There will be talk about some of the other groups who have done work. But right now, I think that what we're looking at are these recommendations to make sure that that we're on board for most of these things.
Yeah.
And then someone, I don't know whose job it's going to be, is going to have to write, the introduction, those things like that. And then we'll have to have a discussion as we all go through the document together and try and work on it.
Okay. Would we be able to, Garrett and others, I guess I'm curious if we could identify, like, what are the research priorities still left? Do you know what I mean? That we need to be sure that we're working on, just so we know. Do you know what I mean? Just so we can say, like, all right, for a preliminary report, Bill, as you mentioned, and Marcia, we talked about this also, that's not something that has to be necessarily anything we described. So we could probably knock that out and get something that articulates that. But we still, I feel like, because I just never really was super clear on this, like, what should I be doing between now and then research-wise and writing-wise? Does that make sense? And looking at, anyway, so that's what I just want to get at before we move on and we talk about community engagement and other sort of things we want to do between maybe now and then. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of information already. I don't think there are that many of the data points that we started out with that we haven't done some research on. The one thing I'm wondering about is that survey. And I just don't know where that's at. I don't know when it's going to go out. I don't know how it's going to go out or if it's going to go out.
Yeah, okay. Are there
Yeah,
Yep, go ahead.
that I'll be ready to present some beginnings on is getting clear about who is considered a person that's African American, or Black in this country, that would be receiving reparations of some sort. So I've been looking at what is the legal definition of Black, African American. Those words are interchangeable sometimes. What is the American government's understanding of what Black and African American is? There is a very different way in which America chooses to look at race and what is considered Black. And I was surprised to see that the Jim Crow law still is in effect to this day. Of one drop of blood, of Black blood, means that you're Black, which I was surprised at. So, yeah, that's something that we talked about at the very beginning that we were going to cover. We never have talked about it, but I've been reading up on that, and I'd like to put that out there with a couple of articles so people can at least get an understanding of how America deals differently with this question than Europe and the rest of the world.
Okay.
And it is based out of Jim Crow.
Yep.
So just so folks know that.
Okay, that'll be helpful. I was just thinking about as another sort of task or just research task to sort of do. I know that Jeremy, you were working, with some of the high school students, and that I don't know where that went in terms of like research or stuff to gather for the final report. And so I wondered, is there materials that Jeremy, that you feel like you could identify and put a timetable on to do research on to put in the final report at all, or where are you at with that? There was a scholarship. What are the recommendation numbers that dealt with that? Does anyone have them in handy? There were.
We had the young people testify to their experiences in Northampton High School, where they put together a presentation to us. We can use that to draw from, and they made some very clear recommendations to us. In addition, I've been waiting to get in touch with, because they went on break for the summer, and that is technical high school. I did speak to the mayor's office. They contacted the superintendent. We set up a communication. Sage, can you say exactly where that communication is right now?
Yeah, and actually I just want to ask a question related to that, Marsha, real quick, and that is looking at, just to make sure everyone's on it, this is recommendation 10.
just note that there is one of these documents is a recommendation that I wrote up for last month,
Yeah.
for August 6th. There is one I sent out last Wednesday with
Okay.
a recommendation for this meeting of September 3rd.
Okay.
They're not different in substance, but they have more citations to the authority. They want to new recommendations, including some city council.
Okay.
But the most recent draft is the one that was distributed last Wednesday to everyone.
Okay.
It's for the meeting of September 3rd.
Okay.
Can we let Jeremy talk too?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I remember that Sarah asked me to, I was able to do this because of over the summer, but now since school is starting, I will be able to meet with BSU more often. One thing especially was trying to get, she wanted me to survey members of BSU, specifically, if I remember, about like, how would they rate racial harms or racial incidents experiences, you know, on a certain scale, and get that kind of data out. So that was something I was going to work with, as that was something she mentioned. But there was a little bit of pushback from some of the leaders about, you know, having this as a scale. So I think, and what I sent an email to Marcia a while ago about maybe the summer and stuff, and didn't get it. But my overall plan was JFK did this amazing thing. Tom Wiener talked about it in February, wherein they had this kind of billboard, and people added racial harms themselves. You know, every day, you know, someone would write something up on the board, or so I was thinking for Northampton, especially, that would be probably maybe even a better thing to do than just have a survey of a scale, you know, for, I thought, for BSU. It seemed like Kendall and such would probably do something more like that than a actual survey.
Okay, and so is that something that, so I guess I'm just trying to get to like, all right, is that a task that, you know what I mean? Like, you feel like you could take off, I mean, writing a survey for people to do, that's no small feat, so, but doing some activity where, you know, whatever information could be conveyed to the commission would be, you know, very helpful. And does that sound like a thumbs up for an activity?
Yes.
Okay, and so I assume Marcia and others, other people who are involved, could offer support, you know, for just, you know, sort of, if you want to talk through, Jeremy, about how to, you know, sort of facilitate that or to gather the information. I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated. People can write things. You could bring it to us or whatever. But I just want to make sure that you have support to make that activity happen, and then to attempt to use some of that for the commission report. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Marcia has generally been my communication person.
Okay.
Solidarity.
Great. Okay.
Coming directly to the BSU meetings at the point I think last year.
Okay.
I think these things.
No more. Not today.
I just wanted to help you tell.
I'm going to give you 5 minutes at the end. I'm going to give you 5 minutes at the end. No more.
I just want.
No more.
Jeremy needs to know.
If you want to do it, Tom, come over here to me and whisper in my ear or write it down and give it to me. Okay. No more. Yeah. You're not on the commission. No more. Okay. Let's go back to the group. Okay. We have 12 minutes left to go. All right. Okay. So right now, currently, we have Jeremy as a task he's going to do, right? I'll pass it on to Felicia. Do you mind to facilitate the last couple of minutes of the meeting? Okay, I want to talk to Tom outside for a second.
Well, I would like.
I wasn't trying to. First of all, this is not personal, so this is not about any person and what they didn't do and what they did do. What I'm trying to do when I was talking to Usman is like, no matter what is done or what isn't done, we have to get a handle on it now. Mm-hmm. That person, whatever person, if it had been Usman that had left or me that had left, we'd still have to get a handle on what that person is working on.
Yeah. I heard you, Marsha. I think I heard you.
It's not personal, but I just feel like most of us are professional people and have been a part of data collection and gathering and have done reporting, and this is not the way reporting gets done. Haphazard, one person working on this it's usually organized, and that's what I'm saying. Let's get organized so we can get on top of what's happening.
Yep, I think everyone is on the same page. So let's move forward with tasks.
Well, I just want to touch on that organization detail is that Bill and I were just looking, so what we have in front of us that was passed out was from a previous meeting. So these recommendations are not what we were looking at, and the most recent draft that Bill has, which I believe he shared with Usman, which I think we'll get, addresses some of the issues, Marsha, that you're talking about.
Yeah, and it was sent to everyone last Wednesday.
Okay,
I'm looking at a copy of the new
the newest one, yeah.
Yeah, and it has a lot of the explanations, a lot of the research is contained in the footnotes, and a lot more of the research is contained in the body. There are very few of these recommendations that don't have a basis stated within them.
Jeremy, do you need any support for the tasks that are on hand? You have Marsha. Are there anything else that you need from us as a commission to assist you?
Can't think of anything currently right now. But I guess I'll have to, probably would love to have the leaders of BSU in touch in their emails that I can supply. As communicatively, especially with, at least for me personally with school, I have quite a lot of AP classes this semester, so it's been quite busy, in fact. So, the more, I guess, anyone can really help out in general, so I guess communicative ways, better. I did send my email about something, but yes.
Okay.
And I'm happy to help in any way that I can too, and you have my email address as well and the rest of the commission. So as you move forward, and if you do need assistance, please feel free to reach out to me and others that have volunteered themselves to assist with you.
Okay. Just in the time that we have, which obviously is not a lot, I did want to, Bill, we didn't get a chance to talk about the other work.
I'd like to ask for some help on something.
Yeah.
Okay. There's information in this most recent report that is specifically withheld. And it's withheld for the reason that is explained in the document. Okay? I have that data. I am trying to compile it in the most useful and easily digestible form that I can. It's not easy, but I'm pretty darn close. We have a number of institutions in Northampton that were involved in the financing of mortgages for real estate for homes that either have directly in them, had directly in them, or incorporate by reference to previous deeds or mortgages racially restrictive covenants. There are, I'm not saying I have all of them, but I have about 225 or more of them. And I think that this is quite sensitive information. I think some people will be aghast, some people will be appalled, some people will be surprised, and some people won't be surprised. But I think that on the whole, it is going to touch a nerve in this community. It is my suggestion that before I put this out to this commission, and when it becomes part of our agenda, it is a public document, that what we do, there's only one institution that I would personally feel somewhat strongly about being involved in this conversation, but this commission should, I think, reach out to those institutions and tell them this is coming. The reason for that is that we want those institutions to be engaged with us and supportive of this work. They are not, in my opinion, meant to become the enemy, because many of them are most assuredly community-oriented organizations that do a lot here, okay? I think some of them will be shocked at their own involvement. Good. We're going to educate the community. Fabulous. Good thing to do. But what I want to know is whether it is okay with the commission for us to organize. We can do this informally. We can figure out who should do it or how to do it. We don't need to do that all at this meeting. But is it okay to begin to reach out to those institutions? That's my question. And then the question is, once we've done that, then I think we can I'll put it all out there. Everything I got. I want to share it. I want to make it public. I want everyone here to know it. There is a tension between being a responsible community organization and our obligations under the open meeting law. There's just no simple way to reconcile those two things. So that's why I'm raising this issue now. And once we tell them, I'm perfectly happy to put it out there, and if it comes out as a preliminary draft or as a draft of our preliminary report, fine. If it shows up first and gets the press in our preliminary report, fine. But I just think one thing I want to get done is that notification.
Do you imagine this happening by having 3 commissioners reach out? Like, tell me, do you have any suggestions on that process, the literal process? I'm trying to be really literal here, just in terms
Sure. I think that 1 or 2 people, or 3, I don't think we'd need to make it more than that, should go visit these institutions. That's what I think.
Yeah. Okay, with the information and talking to them.
Yeah, and I think, any combination, come do it. I'm happy to go through it with everyone, what I have for that institution and that organization, and we'll know it before we go up, or you'll know it before you go up. If I'm not there, fine.
In terms of the task, it would be 5 institutions? 2?
8.
8. Okay. All right. So just in terms of time, I think we should think about this and not, like, have people see if they're going to volunteer. Yeah. So that makes sense to me. Yeah. Go ahead, Renika. Go ahead, yeah.
Because I have actually very complicated feelings about this.
Okay.
And giving them a heads up about things that they may or may not already know, because we don't want to make enemies of them or their feelings hurt. Like, I have very complicated and very strong feelings leaning against not doing it. So before we make a decision on this, I think that we all should have more time to think about it. And we should at least know some of the entities before we just decide blanket that this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think that the idea, as I understand it, would be to, think about ways people could partner with us, because it's going to go in the report anyway. So it's just sort of like an idea of figuring out ways that entities would be able to potentially partner with us for it. So you want to respond to that, and then Jeremy? Go ahead, Bill. Bill, just go respond to it, Jeremy, real quick.
Yeah, look, I think that's an excellent point, and it's one that I've struggled with. But the reality is, no, I don't say but, and the reality is that we want those institutions to back what we're doing. We want them to endorse what we're doing. We want them to support what we're doing. It's not a gotcha moment, because they're going to be told. We're going to make public exactly what they've done.
Yep.
So now I don't care about hurting their feelings. I care about them feeling like this commission treated them fairly, and in this community, it would behoove us to reach out and say, this is coming.
Yeah.
That's about what it amounts to.
And also a great opportunity, I think, for people to do that. Yeah, go ahead. And then Jeremy.
I think
Jeremy has something.
Yeah, Jeremy has something to say. Hey, Jeremy, is this on the same topic?
No.
Okay, so let me just continue the little quick dialogue right here, then we'll let you in. Go ahead, Felicia, real quick.
I was just going to say, this is a way of modeling restorative practices.
Yeah.
This could be an opportunity for us to actually model what that looks like. As putting a positive spin to this.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's true. Go ahead.
In the same campus, Renika, I think restorative practices, you have to go into that. If my understanding is correct, and what I've read about it, those people approach that together. They don't. Yes. One side is approaching it from a restorative practice, and the other side doesn't know that they're in a restorative practice process.
That's the,
So
that's.
I have concern about that. And also, I'm surprised as a lawyer, Bill, that you would want to give a heads up to someone, to an organization that may be in a situation where they may have to do reparations based on their practice. I'm not sure about that. I'm not an attorney. Don't play one on television. Just surprised by that.
Yep. All right. So I'll let you respond, and I do want to get Jeremy because we are almost at time, and yeah, go ahead.
I mean.
Wait, yeah, Felicia was going to respond to that real quick, and then we'll let you in for.
I can't speak for Bill, but Marcia, you know, restorative practices is about repairing relationships, and if folks don't know, then how do they repair? And so I'm not sure your thoughts about this because I don't quite follow. But the way of dealing with conflict focuses on identifying the conflict and then being able to engage, and if both parties want to focus on that repair of harm, then they have the opportunity to do so. So I just want to be very clear about what restorative practices are, and if people don't know that there's a problem or that harm has been done or aren't aware, you have to make them aware.
Okay. Let's keep it.
Often gets played in these situations, but come on now, folks.
Yeah.
Let's get real.
Yeah, let's get real.
You know that oftentimes our community will approach things in that way, and then we get the short end of the stick, the crumbs, whatever you want to call it, and that happens quite a bit. There's a lot. Now you're talking about evidence. There's a ton of evidence for that. So I don't understand what you're talking about.
Let's actually, I think, yeah.
Let Jerry go. I think that part of the issue is we're under the assumption that they don't know. And I don't think that that's a valid assumption to make that these entities don't know what's in their history. And that's it.
Yeah, I just want to say that this sounds like such an important topic that we should certainly make it a larger conversation for our next time. Jeremy, go ahead.
All right, my quick thing is just, are we going to be holding meetings now once every month, twice every month? Like what's...
Well, that's a good question.
We're kind of at a thing where we did it twice a month, and then since a lot of people weren't available over the summer, we converted back to once a month, so...
Yeah, and so one of my ideas as we conclude is exactly this, by figuring out what are the tasks that need to get done, who's going to sort of be involved with working on those tasks, and then figuring out when it needs to be a group of people working together on it, or if it needs to take up the entire conversation. I mean, clearly this conversation about how to respond to the reality of evidence that Bill has discovered is a much bigger conversation that we need to have, right? That's not a task to be like divided off. There might be other ones, such as the one that we asked you to work on, Jeremy. There really is not one that necessarily needs the entire commission to work on. And so those would be ones that, you and Marcia and others who are involved with that could be working on that. We didn't get an update from the engagement group, but they're meeting weekly and they're working on an event. And that's not something that we all need to meet to talk about here. That's just a task to actually get done. We need to find out about the status of the survey if we still want to go with the survey. That's a task that I will do to find out and let everyone know about that. Are there other tasks that we need to make sure we're on? I know that was October 5th the date that we said we would have the final report, that now maybe, one of the tasks is emailing the mayor, right, and asking for at least some sort of extension. Is that a task that needs to be done? I'm looking at Garrett.
I see you looking at me.
Is that a task?
I think just in my previous experience, what happened on the committee to study barriers to service is that the chairs just came to a meeting and requested an extension.
Okay.
But Councilor Elkins, am I correct in remembering that? I don't know if you're there or not.
Okay.
So I think that's
so it's just a matter of.
I am here. That is correct.
Okay. When's the next meeting I can come to? Are we in agreement that we need at least some sort of extension?
Yeah. So we can't do it to this one because it already went out of the agenda. But we could do the next. We have 2 meetings a month.
Okay.
Thursday. So we'll just talk to the council president about putting you on.
Okay.
For that. And
is
so
that something? I know we're 4 minutes over. Renika, Marissa, straw poll. I mean, is anyone against us requesting? I guess we need to figure out what that extension looks like, right? I mean, that's an important question to answer.
I also think we need to remember this is going to be a preliminary report, right? Not the final report. And we need to be careful with that language, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So where do we stand with that?
So if I can jump in, I want to emphasize, first of all, that this isn't, I don't foresee this being anything that council's going to have any issue with. It's just more of a status update. And that if the report is we need more time, I don't even think it's anything that the council would vote on. Like it would just be up for a little interim report to update on the timeline, and I don't foresee anybody having any issue with that. So I don't even see anything to vote on.
Okay.
Just for the record.
I'm asking about a task. Okay, great. So that means a task that I said that I would obviously talk to individuals about how to make that happen. As we're 5 minutes over, are there other things that we need to ensure we do before our next meeting?
Confirm if we're meeting twice a month or
Okay. Yeah. Where are we at with meeting in 2 weeks?
My suggestion would be to hold off as we reorganize. I feel like there's a lot of tasks, and I think that before we could move forward, we would need Sage to just gather the information. So as even Marcia said, get organized and then come next month.
Okay.
The meeting would be my suggestion.
Does that sound okay, everyone online?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now our plan is to meet next month. Right, we're in between now and next month, we're going to have a package for everyone. Sage, we're going to work on, and we're going to send everyone. This is everything that people worked on, so all of us can look through it. And then the next step would be to literally divide up. Are we trying to get a preliminary report done by next meeting, Bill?
I think that it would be prudent to tell the city council that we're going to have a preliminary report for you by this date. I would love to do it by the end of the month. If we absolutely can't do it because we're not going to meet till the first week of October, then we say by October 15th to the council. And I think we should try to get these parts done. I would point out that in the most recent iteration of these draft recommendations, within the body of the various recommendations and or in the footnotes to the various sections, there are specific statements about what we haven't done and will do by the final report.
Okay.
So I think that it's probably worth going through that and making that as one of, because there's a pretty good list that can come out of that of things that we've said we're going to do and that we need to do before the final report.
Okay. So if we could look at all that, particularly that would be, we're going to come, we'll set the agenda for next time, but on the agenda is the discussion we just began, and then the list of things we definitely need to get done. So if everyone could make sure that they at least page through, I mean, you don't have to read through every single document, but we could just page through, have a working sense of what we have got done, and then look at the preliminary report. That would be really great.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
That Anthony create a table of contents so we at least know what's there and not try and go through all these documents, whatever the other, so we at least that would, hey, we got this, we got this, we got this, we got this.
Okay.
That was one thing. And then the other thing is I think we should table the whole idea of recommendations because we don't even have a report. I've never heard of or been a part of any producing recommendations before you produce the report.
Okay.
So
I think that
seems to me cart before the horse.
Yeah. Okay. Noted. Comment noted. Anthony, you got that? Everyone in agreement? Table of contents would be very helpful. Okay. I have all the documents so we can just skim through it. Okay. Let's. Yeah. Where's the?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion seconded. Where is my list? Does anyone have in front of them the agenda with all the names, everybody?
Yes, I'll call.
Okay, thank you.
William Newman.
Yes.
Felicia Lundquist.
Yes.
Garrick Perry, me, yes. Jeremy Baker-Paquette.
Yes.
Marissa Elkins.
Yes.
Marsha Morris.
Yes.
Usman Power Green.
Yes.
Renika Montgomery Tomaclo.
Yes.
Rachel Naismith.
Yes.
Chair, you are adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. All right. See you all next month or earlier.